Hello and good morning, Hena. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Man, I'll tell you what, I am so proud of you in writing this book. And the reason why is because there are so many authors out here, authors as well as artists, that are out here that hide. And especially when it comes to becoming a physical artist on a canvas, we hide. And it's books like this that that serve as an invitation.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much.
What went into this? Are you that artist that you're talking about in this book?
Yes, in many ways I am. I think Deena is grappling with many of the things that I'm thinking about all the time, especially as I think I'm delving more and more into this world of being a creative person and a writer and being more published. It's that tricky balance between being public facing versus wanting to be holed up in my house just writing stories and navigating that relationship with social media and thinking about the impact that that immediate contact with your audience might have on your own creative process and what you do and how you evaluate yourself and your value. It's a lot to take.
I'm glad you said creative person, because the thing about it is that so many times creative people only want to do one thing, and that's not how we really work. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in there at all times, and you've got to learn to turn it all free.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I know a lot of writers, we commiserate about how we never realize how many other aspects there are to being a children's author, for example. The marketing and the publicity side and the business aspect of it. And you think it's just writing, but it's much more than that.
Yeah, because I mean, it's one of those things where I think writing is also the voice of the person that's putting things on a canvas. It could be, writing is the songwriter. And so to me, it's just one of the voices that are constantly moving through each and every one of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many different ways to express yourself. And that was something that I wanted to highlight in this book as well. Even though I'm not an amazing visual artist, those people who are painting these canvases and these murals, that, they're also expressing themselves in very intimate ways and putting themselves out there.
Deena is so real in the way that you deal with anxiety in this. And I love that, because that needs to be something that needs to be in books so that young adults can sit there and say, I'm not alone.
Yeah, that was my thought. And that's why, her anxiety is something that presents, early in the book when she discovers a cracked tooth at the dentist. And then, gradually we see other signs of it when she's experiencing stomach aches and nausea,
Yeah.
but it's slow build. And she herself isn't quite aware of what she's confronting. A lot of us dismiss the signs of anxiety, especially in children, because they're so easy to confuse with other things. And it's also easy to sometimes think that, I don't have anything to be stressed about. Why would I have anxiety, or why would my kid have anxiety? Mm-hmm. So it is something that sort of takes time to reveal itself to her.
And standing up against the bullies. Oh, I had to deal with that when I was a kid, and I didn't do well. And to this day, I still hold myself responsible for my reactions of trying to just walk away.
Yeah, and luckily, in this book, Deena doesn't have to confront real life bullies like so many of us had to and still have to. But it's more that hidden bully that we've also met on social media who can hide behind anonymity and just be nasty. And that's something that we're seeing more and more, unfortunately, kids having to deal with and figure out how to navigate.
Oh, and how about bullying ourselves? I mean, we're not nice to ourselves half the time.
No, and social media makes that harder, right? When we compare ourselves, I know I can't help it. I compare myself to others, even though I know how unhealthy it is, and I feel bad for myself when I see certain things. I know I probably do the same thing to others, so it's really tricky.
The great thing about this story is we need it right now, and the reason why is because it's about an immigrant family, and we need this because we need the readers to say, okay, this is my identity, this is my family, this is what I'm living with today. Thank you for this book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, as a child of immigrants, it's something that's really close to my heart and important to me. I think there's so many aspects of immigrant families that, are really important to highlight. Things like children of immigrants having to perhaps advocate for themselves a bit more than other kids. But also the idea that, immigrant families are every family too. The relationship, the mother-daughter dynamic, the idea that the people you think you know best in the world sometimes surprise you. that we're all capable of evolving and growing, no matter what our families look like.
One of the things that you deal with in this book, which is called Drawing Deena, and I think that all artists do it, but you feel like you're the only one on the planet, and that is when you start questioning your art. And to me, that's part of the personal growth.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that that was something that was really, really meaningful for me to get to explore, because Deena's a huge fan of Vincent van Gogh, like many of us, and she's adoring his art as she's trying to find her own style and way to express herself. But she's also thinking about this relationship with the audience, and how in his case, he didn't even sell much in his lifetime and never knew what a huge impact he was going to have on the world. And what does it mean, and how does it shape us when we have that instant contact with the world and instant feedback? And what does that do to us in our creative process? And how does it, even just the time it takes, for us to engage in social media, and the time it takes away from us perhaps creating our next masterpiece. So all of those things are really important to think about as creators of any type of art.
I can't imagine for today's up-and-coming artists as well as writers what they're having to deal with when we talk about social media, because I didn't have that as a kid. I mean, that didn't happen until the 1990s for me. And so, I mean, I can't imagine, when you do display your art. Julia Cameron taught us that, hey, look, learn to display your art so you can learn how to ignore criticism. But look, I mean, but to display it on the internet and on social media, man, that's got to be a scary world for young adults.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just the idea of being moved by likes, what does that do? Does that make you want to create more of the same, to imitate others, or do whatever it takes to chase the dream of going viral? Mm-hmm. Because we do start to measure our own value by those little thumbs up signs or those hearts. And also, what does it mean? Does viral mean good? Does popular mean good? Right. And what is the difference? And those are all things that we have to think about, and we could think about in a vacuum, like you said earlier, but now it's very difficult to do that.
You really do a great job in explaining the underlying story here, that it's from it's about a Muslim child, and because a lot of people only hear what their parents are saying or read whatever they're getting on social media. I love how important it is to you as the writer to bring this to readers.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that is, that's my identity as a Pakistani American Muslim child of immigrants. I share the same identity as my character. And, for me, it's really important for people who maybe don't have a chance to get to know a family like mine to get to know one through Deena and see that, the families are very, very similar to others. And you might see a lot of yourself in Deena and her family and her community. So, that's really always been my goal, to show those universal values and those universal truths that we all share. Speaking
of seeing yourself, what did you learn from this book? Because even though you're the writer, you still have to be the student.
Oh, always. And I think, as a writer, we're evolving, and we're learning how to be better at certain things. In this book, I was really paying attention to pacing and, the traditional story arc versus what this book is, which is, a little different. So I was like, am I doing this right? Well, is this going to turn out okay? And so it's fun to push yourself and challenge yourself and grow as a writer and as someone trying new things.
You talk about that pacing. I mean, that right there in itself. I mean, that's going to be colons, semicolons, and commas, and do I have a run-on sentence? I mean, what did you have to face that with your editor?
Not so much as just am I moving the story in the way I want? Yeah. I kept chapters short in this book deliberately. I think it keeps readers engaged, especially reluctant readers who might really need that satisfaction of finishing a chapter. I made it easier, and the book's not a huge tome. It's medium length, so I think all of those things were important to me, because I want to keep people engaged in what is called a quiet story. It's not filled with action or adventure, but there's a lot going on, and I want readers to feel invested and motivated to keep reading and to wonder what happens next.
Oh my God, you speak my street when you say that there's shorter chapters, because my entire life it's all been based on, hey, I want to read a short chapter so I can have a victory. Because I mean, inside my mind and body and soul, getting to the end of a chapter, that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, as we all know, it's harder and harder to stay focused these days and to keep people's attention.
Yeah, yeah. So where can people go to find out more about this book as well as more about you? Because I want them to love you and support you and just give you lots of attention.
Well, thank you. I would love that too. You can find me online. I have a website, henacon.com, where you can learn all about my books, more about me, see goofy pictures of me as a child. And you can reach out to me as well. I have a contact me form. I do lots of school visits, so you can arrange one through there as well. And you can also connect with me on social media as much as I do still have that complicated relationship with it. You can find me at Hena Khan Books.
I love it. Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
You be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you. You too.